While Europe was opening its borders to hundreds of thousands of migrants, Denmark, just like Poland and Hungary, chose a completely different path. This small country, known for its high quality of life, developed a migration policy that rejects mass openness in favor of strict rules and responsibility. In 2015, Europe was facing its biggest migration crisis in decades. Germany, in just 1 year, accepted over 1.1 million migrants, opening its borders on an unprecedented scale. Sweden, despite having a smaller population, accepted over 160,000 people, making it the country with the highest number of migrants per capita in Europe. And Denmark, at the same time, it took in just 21,000 migrants, 4 times fewer per capita than Germany. Looking at it today, that was a great decision. Denmark chose caution and selectivity from the beginning, taking an approach that minimized the risk of mass migration. As a result, it avoided the problems that hit other countries hard. Denmark's strict migration policy has wide public support. Studies show that over 70% of Danes support limiting the intake of migrants, while in other countries like Germany or France, migration policy led to protests and deep social divisions. In Denmark, it was widely accepted. Danes see migration not only as a challenge but also as a potential threat to their social system. That's why the government, with strong support from the public, consistently introduced reforms to protect the country's stability. Thanks to that, Denmark avoided welfare overload and the social tensions now seen in much of Europe. Even though Denmark took in fewer migrants than other countries, what mattered wasn't just the numbers, but the policies and measures taken to control the flow. Denmark created one of the strictest asylum systems in Europe. The key idea is self-reliance and return policy. Migrants must show they're willing to integrate quickly and get a job. Their stay in Denmark is considered temporary. In 2019, Denmark officially changed its terminology. The word integration was replaced with self-reliance. The goal was clear: migrants should support themselves as soon as possible or return home once it's safe to do so. One example of this policy was Denmark's 2021 decision to revoke residence permits for Syrian refugees. Authorities declared Damascus safe and called on refugees to return. Those who refused were moved to special return centers where they must wait for deportation or choose to leave voluntarily. These decisions drew international criticism, but the Danes stood firm, saying their top priority is protecting their social system and society. These controversial actions actually did work. They significantly reduced the number of people applying for asylum in Denmark. In 2022, only 2,000 new asylum requests were made, one of the lowest numbers in the entire EU. Why did Denmark take such steps? The economic data speaks for itself. Migrants from non-European countries earn on average 40 to 50% less than native Danes. This gap means they rely more on welfare and public support. A 2021 government report estimated that non-European migrants cause annual losses of 24 billion Danish kroner to the national budget. Migrants must be active participants in the labor market, not passive welfare recipients. Restrictions are only one part of Denmark's strategy. The country also implemented detailed plans and programs to integrate migrants and prevent the formation of isolated communities.
We are today leaving the destiny of too many people to human smugglers. The current asylum and migration system does not address the challenges we face today. We need to do it better, to save lives and to prevent rape and abuse. It calls for new common solutions.
Reports show that neighborhoods where over 50% of people come from outside the EU have higher levels of unemployment, crime, and welfare dependency. In response, the Danish government introduced a strategy to spread out migrant populations and avoid high concentrations in specific areas. Under the Ghetto Plan, Denmark made it mandatory for migrant children over the age of 1 to attend nursery or kindergarten at least 25 hours per week. During these classes, children learn Danish, social norms, and key values. Families that don't comply lose their right to welfare benefits, which works as an incentive toward integration. Another part of the plan involved demolishing housing blocks in problem areas and privatizing public housing. Between 2019 and 2023, more than 8,000 units were demolished or restructured, reducing migrant concentration in one place. In addition, Denmark has one of the toughest welfare systems for migrants in Europe. Migrants who don't meet integration requirements receive only minimal financial support. Newcomers get 40% less than native citizens until they prove they can support themselves and work. Rules were also added to stop long-term benefit use. After 2 years, migrants must show progress in learning the language or finding a job. This discourages those only seeking welfare and attracts those willing to contribute. Denmark also launched a work for welfare system. Migrants who want state support must take a job or volunteer. In 2022, 75% of participants moved into regular jobs within 2 years. Denmark faces demographic challenges like an aging population and a shrinking workforce. Instead of mass immigration, the government focuses on selective intake. Priority goes to highly skilled workers who can fill job gaps. In 2022, only 20,000 skilled workers were admitted, just 0.4% of the population, but it helped reduce shortages in key industries. Unlike Germany or France, Denmark cut down the intake of low-skilled migrants. That way, Denmark can plan a future where its welfare system stays strong and the labor market meets the growing demands of tech and service sectors. But migration isn't just a national issue. Denmark knows global action is needed. So how has it influenced the EU's migration policy? Denmark has long stood out in Europe for its proactive and organized approach to migration. In response to the 2015 crisis, it began promoting a more balanced strategy which would protect internal stability in the EU. One of its boldest ideas was the creation of external asylum centers outside of Europe. People seeking protection could be screened before even reaching the EU. In 2021, Denmark started talks with Rwanda to open a center where migrants would be housed and processed. The plan got support from countries like Austria and Hungary, who also want to cut migration flows. At the EU level, Denmark joined 14 other states to push for stronger external borders by signing new deals with transit countries like Turkey and Tunisia. The goal of these actions is to stop migrants before they reach EU borders. These efforts helped reduce illegal crossings in 2023 by 25% compared to 2021. Of course, Denmark's approach isn't without controversy. Groups like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch oppose offshoring asylum centers. They argue that refugees should be able to apply for asylum directly in EU countries where legal and social standards are high. Denmark's 2021 decision to revoke Syrian residence permits also caused global outrage. By the end of 2023, over 1,200 Syrians had lost their residency and were sent to deportation centers. This move was deemed inhumane because returning to Syria could lead to potential risks. Still, the Danish government stands firm. In 2022, the Prime Minister said, "We must think long-term. Social stability and the safety of our people are our top priorities. If we don't understand that, our welfare systems won't survive." Denmark has also been criticized for stigmatizing migrants through strict housing laws in migrant-heavy areas. Critics say this creates more segregation and exclusion. But 2022 data shows crime dropped by 20% and employment rose by 12% in affected areas since 2018. It clearly proves the program has had some success. Denmark makes it clear its migration policy is a response to real-world challenges. In a time of rising migration and economic pressure, it has chosen a pragmatic path, controversial but aimed at protecting both its people and the EU's future. By doing so, Danes avoided many of the problems other countries now face, like rising crime, for example, in contrast to Germany, which is facing serious consequences of reckless decisions. You can dive deeper into this topic by watching the video currently displayed on your screen.